Hello. My intercultural project is on the differences and similarities between the Greek Orthodox and the Catholic Church. My purpose is to inform my audience about the distinct differences and similarities of the Greek Orthodox and the Catholic Church. The Catholics in the Eastern Orthodox Church differ so much because throughout the time between 325 and 787 AD, 1,000 years after Christ died, there was conflicts between the Latin-speaking Catholic Church of the East and the Greek-speaking Orthodox Church of the West. It caused an increase in distrust and hostility between them, and which in turn severed the ties between the two churches. The cultures of the Latin-speaking West and the Greek-speaking East grew more and more estranged, ending in the separation of the two churches. Some of the differences between the two churches are the Greek Orthodox speak Greek, and the Catholics speak Latin, and the Greeks do not hold a pope. The Greeks have bishops that run their churches, and deacons and priests. The priests are the head of the church, the bishops are second in line, and the deacons can actually be females in the Greek church, which they cannot be female at all in the Latin Catholic Church. Also, within that, the priests and bishops of the Greek Church can be married and have families. And in the Catholic Church, they cannot be married or have families or have any kind of sexual activity at all. Some more differences are their creeds are different. One creed for the Latin Church pleads to the Church, the Trinity, the Holy Communion. The Greeks' creed goes to the Toko Potus, which means mother of, or bearer of God is what it means. And the communion between the churches is different as well. The communion in the Catholic Church, Catholics can go up and receive communion. Anybody who is able to receive communion, whether they're Orthodox or Lutheran, can go up to the priest and receive communion. But in the Orthodox Church, only the members of the Orthodox Church can receive communion at time of communion. Everybody else who is able to receive communion must wait until after the Mass is over, and then they can feed themselves, offer themselves the communion, the Eucharist of Christ, which is the body and the blood. Some of the similarities between the two churches, another difference between the churches is that the Greeks do not honor a pope. They do not have a pope. All of their church heads are equal as one. If I were to be a deaconess, I would be equal to the bishop and or the priest. In the Catholic Church, they believe in the Pope. The Pope is the highest aspect of the holy religion of the Catholics. And their order is as high as the President of the United States or the King of England or the Queen of England. they hold their own high purpose. And some of the similarities are they believe in the same offerings from the Bible. They only choose 12 books from the Bible. Some of those include Matthew, Mark, Luke, John the Baptist, the Corinthians, the Philippians. That's just a few. Some more similarities are that they do believe in reconciliation, so you have to have a confession with the Orthodox and the Catholics. They believe in all the sacraments of faith, which begin with being christened at birth or baptism, your first Eucharist or communion, confirmation, marriage. There's 12 sacraments in all, but that's just a few to name. And this affects me because the Catholics and the Greeks are very strong spiritual people, as am I. And they hold on to their faith in different ways, yet ultimately the same ways. They all have holy days of obligation where they name off certain saints of the month, and they have a feast regarding those saints. I went to Mass at an Orthodox church, and it was very difficult for me to follow along with. I had been to many Latin services, and I speak Greek enough to where I could follow along tepidly in the service. But you have to thumb through a book that tells you the order of the Mass and how everything's going to be played out. And you have to try to find what you're looking for in the order of the Mass, the different prayers that are being said, the songs that are being sung, and you have to really search through it, and it's very difficult, especially if you don't understand any Greek. In the Latin church, I also speak Latin, so when I would go to the Latin Mass, it was as fluid to me as going to an English Mass. And I suppose that if I were to go to the Orthodox Church on a more regular basis, that I would come to the terms of the fact that I would be able to completely understand what was going on there. And it was just difficult because the Mass is so different. For instance, in the Catholic Mass, when you go in, you sit, you kneel. There's no kneeling in the Orthodox Church. You kneel to praise God when you first come in, to say prayer that you're in His house, to be able to worship Him. You say your rosary. The Greeks don't say a rosary. And then the priest in the Catholic Church only uses incense on occasions, special occasions, certain holidays, certain days of holy obligation. And in the Greek Church, they use incense every Mass religiously. Like throughout the Mass, they refill the cantor, and the priest comes out with the cantor and he flings it to the people as he walks down the aisle, and he blesses all the people, and he blesses all the altars and the symbols of religion that is used. And then he walks back up the center aisle, and he goes through a door, and the altar is behind a wall where there are 3 doors. One is open and 2 are closed on the other side. And he walks through one door to the altar, and he says all his prayers with his back to you. and blesses everything and everyone. And he doesn't speak English. The only time he speaks English is when he's giving the gospel, which is after all the readings have been read. And it was a very emotional and spiritual event for me to be able to go and compare these two churches with everything that I hold into my spirit. In closing, during the service, I remembered the scent of the incense burning in the church, the way the priest would walk around and through archways to the altar. Most of the Mass was completely in Greek. I am Greek, so I understand enough that I was able to mostly stay on track with the guidebook to the service. I didn't know enough about the Mass to follow along. For example, when to kneel, when to stand, which prayer was next, etc. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this experience. And I hope that I helped you understand a little bit of the differences and the similarities between the two Masses. I really enjoyed this class. It was difficult for me to do these videos, but thank you, Miss Grand.